Today, we're going to spend some time with a highly capable luxury V8 SUV with a timeless, boxy design. This is a 2025 Land Rover Defender 110 OCTA with a BMW borrowed 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 making 626 horsepower. Interesting. Now, if you've watched anything on my channel, you'll know that I'm a Lexus guy, which means I like my SUVs like I like my refrigerators. Quiet, dependable, and unlikely to bankrupt me. But every time I see a well-equipped off-road Defender, I take a second look. And I know that the 110 Defender is like the baddie at the end of the bar. There's likely going to be some drama. And I might even need a second mortgage, but I'm interested anyway, even though I can see the flags. Behind the wheel of the Defender 110 OCTA. Now I tell you what, I wish this OCTA had those wheels and tires. Foot on the brake, push to start. So we're going to start with a little bit of on-road performance, and then we will veer off the path and do a little bit of light off-road because this thing's designed to do both. So let's get on out on the road. Because this is the OCTA, we get this big old button here on the steering wheel. If you tap it once, the vehicle goes into dynamic, which should be the most on-road kind of performance spec. If you hold it, it goes into the kind of rally or Baja mode, which we'll do later. But I just can't believe how much this thing rips, guys. Watch this. I don't know if you guys have seen the boys up in Canada that review cars. When they did this thing, they got a slow-mo launch of it practically lifting the front wheel off of the ground, which is insane. Does it have the on-road mannerisms of a Cayenne Turbo? No, absolutely not. This thing is still relatively soft and floaty, but the fact that it can do a straight line launch like that is pretty cool. One thing that Land Rover has done a wonderful job with is driving position. When you are in the driver's seat of one of these Defenders, you just feel like you own the road. Okay, you can see everything. It's a super confident driving position. You know, I've been whipping this thing around town this week, and it's just such a commanding place to be. You know, I know right where I'm gonna place it. I love the big flat dash. It's just so easy to drive, and all that power, I merge past. I mean, I probably look like an asshole, to be honest, but you know, there's always kind of that stigma when you're driving something like this anyway. So a little bit about the OCTA over a normal 110. You know, the 110's been around for a while now, this generation, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the Defender in general because there's so many other videos out there that talk about that. So the OCTA brings over the 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 from BMW, okay? And you might hear that and think, well, that's not actually a good thing. And I actually argue that it is a good thing. I've owned two Land Rovers in the past that were both using the same engine layout, the 5-liter supercharged V8, and then the 3-liter, which are really the same engine, but with just 2 cylinders shaped off. And I had timing chain issues, which is very common, and I had cooling issues, which is also common. And I'm not talking about like, oh, frequent water pumps. There was like this internal coolant crossover pipe or something that failed on both of them, and it was very expensive to repair. And what you'll find is people have that leak and continue to drive the vehicle, and it's not good, obviously, if you're not keeping the coolant in it, and you could potentially overheat one of them. So long term, I actually think this is a better move. BMW has been making Turbo 6 and Turbo 8 cylinders for 20 years, and they're arguably some of the best. I mean, like the B58 is, you know, praised by everybody. So I think this thing having a BMW V8 is actually really good. I do know a lot of people liked the sound of like an SVR Rover with the 5.0 supercharge, and I agree, that is a pretty awesome sound, but I'm not disappointed that this is a BMW in here. Because it's the OCTA, it's like 2.5 inches wider as well, which when you're standing outside looking at it, you can definitely tell. As soon as I pulled this in my driveway, I immediately realized this thing has a wider track than the 110 that I had. It's so funny doing this in an SUV of this size. Wow. That's so awesome. Big old quad-tipped exhaust out the back on the OCTA as well. This thing has some really cool like bucket seats in it, and my Defender did not have them, so you feel pretty, you know, well in your seat here. They're not crazy bolstered like a performance car would be, but you can tell they are something that they're more sporty oriented than a normal seat that you'd find in one of these Defenders. Gear shifts are pretty crisp. Ultimately, this thing does need to be able to tow still, so you have to kind of tote the line of like, you know, performance and towing capabilities, so don't expect lightning fast, you know, dual clutch PDK shifts in this thing. But it is plenty smooth at normal driving and wide open. This is so funny. That's cool. The OCTA also introduces like a hydraulically controlled air suspension versus just the normal air suspension. I haven't been in driving it. I haven't felt the difference per se. You know, I like the sound. Is it loud in here? No. Are some of the pops and bangs induced? Probably. Am I getting a little bit of pumped-in engine sound? I would assume so, based on, you know, BMW's architecture as well. Inside, you know, Land Rover did do a pretty good job with this infotainment. It's responsive. I like the layout. I like how they've implemented CarPlay. But my favorite thing is the fact that Land Rover knew to keep buttons and switches. Thank you, Land Rover. I've been in brand new Range Rover Sports that don't have a single button other than the push start and the hazards. People that buy this potentially want to take it off-road, be wearing gloves, and you want physical buttons and knobs to change things like climate. So good job, Range Rover. Good job on keeping this. Great job, Land Rover. There is some haptic nonsense on the steering wheel, but you don't have to really use any of it. The important things like volume and cruise control, they are physical buttons. Gauges, configurable, easy to configure. I don't mind it. I would still prefer some analog gauges because that's just me being old school, but I give it a pass in here. The kind of like clear, I don't know if this is acrylic or plastic paddles, it's kind of interesting. So when it's in dynamic right now, it's white. When we go off-road here, I'll go and hold it. We'll hold the OCTA button, and they'll turn red. And now we're in OCTA mode, which is, I believe, loosens the suspension a little bit. Kind of think of it as more like a rally type mode. You know, this thing kind of has a Raptor-ish vibe. I don't know if it's wide enough to require it, but it's got those kind of like amber lights that you'd see on like a Raptor or a Tundra TRD Pro because they have a wide stance. This thing has those. I don't know if it was required or just did it for the aesthetics, but I dig it. I like that this thing kind of has some color accented recovery points that look really cool. My 110 had the recovery point on the back, but the OCTA appears to have added this kind of big front one, which is neat. Something that takes a little getting used to, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. These things have a defrosted windshield, okay? So there are vertical lines in the windshield for defroster. And that's obviously great if you live in a climate that, you know, frequently gets snow and ice, but where I live, it's, you know, it snows a couple times a year. My Lexus GX and LX, they just had heated wipers, which were sufficient. So this, I kind of occasionally see the lines and it bothers me, but, you know, it's just me being picky. I might be living under a rock, or the newer Land Rovers I've driven recently are just not spec'd high enough, but this thing has speakers in the seat. I believe they're speakers. I guess they could be just the massaging motors. But this thing allows you to, I'll go back to music here so you can see. If you go to audio, there's a setting to adjust what they were calling sensory audio. And it essentially, it gives you kind of this like live music, kind of concert feel in the seat. And it's not like it's bass coming from a subwoofer and back, there certainly is one of those, but this is something you can feel at low volume without bothering anybody else. It is pretty damn cool. I'm an audio snob, so like this is really neat to me. Being able to listen to the radio at kind of a low volume without being like a douche bass level for the people around you is really cool. You can feel the music and you can adjust how sensitive it is. That is really neat. Again, I don't know if that's just an option on higher spec Rovers nowadays that I haven't seen, but it's here and I like it. It is pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna hop off road a little bit here. Now, full transparency, this thing's a loaner to us, right? This thing's for sale. This will find a new home. So we are not going to be rock crawling this thing like I would like to be, but we're gonna at least do a little bit of light off-roading here. This OCTA is on loaner to us from RP Exotics. They're a dealer here just outside St. Louis, Missouri. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in this particular used OCTA. It's got 22,000 miles, and it's a pretty sweet spec. RP's got a ton of exotics and luxury sports cars and SUVs. I think they even have a restored Defender right now as well. Unlike the Lexus GX and LX that I drive and praise, this thing is not body on frame. Land Rover claims that the Defender takes Viagra 3 times a day, and its monocoque chassis is 3 times more rigid than a traditional body on frame. So when this thing breaks down in 10 years and your buddy comes to tow you in his Land Cruiser, you can at least let him know that your monocoque is 3 times as stiff as the body on frame that he's driving. Yeah. Way to go, Land Rover. But this thing is just cruising along. I mean, we're doing 45 miles an hour on a pretty crappy gravel road. Oh yeah, there's some good ones. I like in this kind of rally mode, it's, you know, I can tell it's got some suspension travel. Of course, like any good Defender, you've got things like 4-low, hill descent. And this does have a center and rear locker that engages on its own. Here, I'll switch my display here. I think I can do left panel, and I can change it to, there you go, 4x4 info. My memory serves me correct. There should be some 4x4 information in here as well. Oh, you've got lap times. Perfect. You want to use a stopwatch and lap times on your Defender? That's great. That's great. Air quality. There we go. So you've got slope. You can see weighting information. You got all the cool off-road stuff in here. That's interesting. 2-door Challenger. Well, you know what? If you wanted to come out and fish or be out in wildlife and all you got is a Dodge Challenger, you gotta make do. And here's a Chrysler 300. Wow, guys, I'm sorry. I'm not making a great case for like proving that this vehicle can do anything off-road, so I'm sorry about that. I do think that off-road, this thing does, it's no doubt more comfortable to drive than my GX or my LX. And I think that's probably expected. You know, this thing has a lot more sophisticated suspension setup. Of course, long term, is it going to require some attention when compared to those vehicles? No doubt, absolutely. So I'm not surprised that this thing is a more comfortable place to be off-road. This thing does have a really good camera setup, if I remember correctly. One of those off-road cams. We got wade sensing there. Apparently you can only cross rivers below 6 miles per hour if you want to see the wade sensing information. Right, we'll hop off the path here, have a little bit of fun. So I guess I need to answer the question, don't I? Would I buy the Defender OCTA as a diehard Lexus guy? And I think the answer is it depends. It's not as straightforward as you might think. The Defender for me has always been the baddie at the end of the bar. She's a 10, but you know there's going to be some drama and you might have to get a second mortgage on your house. But yet, I'm still interested anyway. The Defender, specifically the OCTA, does so many things well, it's just not something that I would own once the warranty's up. But this one's under warranty, and if you can afford it, it brings a lot to the table over a more traditional, reliable, body-on-frame Toyota Lexus product. You're not gonna get 620 horsepower out of a Land Cruiser. This thing does everything so well. It'll be interesting to see what these things trade at 8-9 years from now when they have 100,000 miles. Will the 4.4 liter V8 hold up and make it one of these kind of reliable, desirable SUVs, or once the warranty is expired, will people get rid of these things? So, thanks for coming along for the ride. My name is Scott. You've been watching the Carrera Cafe. I'm a one-man show. This is just kind of a fun hobby for me, so your guys' support is appreciated. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one.